The following feature presentation is part of the Skywalking Network.
This is what you can look forward to on this May the 4th, episode 417 of Skywalking Through Neverland.
More puppet, less CG, less CG, less CG. And it was totally the way to go. Like, it was like, trust the puppet.
So what I'm hearing is that Grogu is a diva.
Yeah, extremely difficult. Yeah, we have lots of conversations about that. Because there's the good version of that and there's the not so good version of that.
Oh my god, it was Anakin! Like, we started, yelling or screaming. We were like, oh, so cute!
Alright, so now maybe you can answer this. At what point was Grogu named Grogu? I don't think Star Wars Month has been this exciting since 1977.
Well, that sounds snappy and fun.
Are you ready?
Off to Neverland!
Here we go!
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land.
When I first made Star Wars, everybody in Hollywood said, well, this is a movie Disney should have made.
You're more than just fans. You're family.
Best day ever!
Secrets love.
It's about family, and that's what's so powerful about it.
Hey.
When you use a bird to write with, it's called tweeting.
When we visit the world of Disney, we never grow old. It's a Peter Pan, Never Land that keeps us young in heart.
This is Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you are skywalking through Neverland. I have a good feeling about this.
Hey, Skywalkers, and happy Star Wars Month to one and to all. Our Star Wars celebration is in high gear with Return of the Jedi, Star Wars Night at Disneyland, and we have an amazing discussion with HAL HICKEL coming up. Like I was saying before we started recording, I don't think Star Wars Month has been this exciting since 1977. And now with this episode of Skywalking Through Neverland, it's through the roof. I am Richard Woloski, but now everyone please say hello to my sweetie wife Sarah, who is still Twitter-pated after speaking with Anakin Skywalker last night.
Oh my gosh. I was literally blushing. But we will get into that story a little later. And right now, we are your enthusiastic podcast destination for the many decades of your Star Wars, Disney, and Marvel fandom. So it's time. If it's going to be any time, it's now. Imagine a big Wookiee hug from us. And a sprinkling of pixie dust for our family of Skywalkers. Now, coming up, we will be speaking with animation supervisor HAL HICKEL, whose work you can see in The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Rogue One, The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, among so many other non-Star Wars films. He also won an Oscar for his work on Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, and he shared so many fantastic stories with us that we had to break this conversation into two parts. This is going to be a two-parter of episodes.
Yeah, so much information was given that we thought, okay, there's way too much to hold in your head at one time, so let's just break it up for the sanity of the Skywalkers. And we're also going to share our fun times so far celebrating Star Wars Month.
And it's only the 3rd.
Yeah, the morning of the 3rd. Now, we are being sponsored by Small World Vacations, and they are a diamond-level Disney vacation planner travel agency and can help you book your trip to a Disney park around the world or on the Galactic Star Cruiser. And best of all, this service is free of charge. Sarah, how much is this service?
It is $0. Zero.
So head over there to smallworldvacations.com for a no-obligation price quote and tell them Skywalking Through Neverland sent you.
Skynet.
Now, we are recording this from Long Beach, California on May the 3rd, 2023, May the 4th Eve. Spencer Jowitz had put out a really funny meme earlier and said to put out your chicken nuggies and blue milk.
Oh!
So Baby Yoda will come and visit you.
That's so cute. I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, to celebrate Star Wars Month, we started a new series of 1-minute videos for YouTube on the Shorts YouTube feed. and on Instagram, where we pick one event from each day and made our Reels and YouTube shorts. So, what happened today in Star Wars history, Richard?
Well, I'm going to give you 2 events that happened today in Star Wars history. Let's go back to May the 3rd, 1999. 24 years ago. Oh, that's almost a quarter of a century.
Oh
All right.
my gosh.
Okay, don't think about that. This is when Star Wars crossed over with MTV by making a music video for Duel of the Fates from the Phantom Menace soundtrack. And once again, that aired on this date in 1999. Now, we can go back a little bit further, really, and say that MTV and Star Wars crossed over with Return of the Jedi because on Halloween of 1983, MTV aired the Lapti Neck video from Jabba's Palace, the crossover with Halloween.
Oh my gosh, what?
I know.
That's weird.
Yeah, but this was like the first big MTV event getting that new audience coming over to Star Wars.
Okay, I don't remember when this video debuted, but I certainly saw this music video because it was everywhere in 1999.
Oh, I had to pay a friend to stay home from work and record this.
Of course.
Because I think I was working or something. So she recorded this on a VHS tape and ran it right over to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. A very good tactic. I think Lucasfilm has always done a very good job at crossing over with their audiences and either the MTV audience or the social media audience. And I think it all really began with the MTV audience. All right. Also on this date, but in 2002, 21 years ago, Star Wars Celebration 2 began in Indianapolis, Indiana, with an estimated 75,000 fans attending. Sarah, did you go to this celebration?
I did not.
You know what?
No.
You know what? You and I, we both didn't go.
Yeah.
We both didn't go together.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm kicking myself because I would really have loved to see the opening ceremony at Celebration 2 that featured Anthony Daniels, Hayden Christensen, Rick McCallum, and Steve Sansweet. And plus, they showed everyone an exclusive sneak preview of the entire Count Dooku Yoda lightsaber battle from Attack of the Clones.
That is surprising, actually.
That is very surprising. And now, thinking back, I'm not sure I would have wanted to have seen that.
No, I agree because that was such a cool moment from the film to see for the first time with a huge, well, I guess they saw it for the first time with a huge audience, but the buildup of the film leading to that moment versus just a clip.
Yeah, we talk about this with our discussion with HAL HICKEL, and I can still hear the audience roaring in applause as that happened.
Yeah, amazing.
Also, Rick McCallum had his own special, the Rick McCallum Spectacular panel. I just love Rick McCallum. I met him back at a Young Indiana Jones event. He was so nice. He was so approachable that he's the next Skywalking through Neverland white whale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he was the producer on the prequels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the special edition and Young Indiana Jones.
Wow.
Those are huge, huge feats of production. I just want to get inside that man's head. Yeah, now he's doing independent films with his wife, and another reason to talk to him, another husband and wife team.
Yeah.
Put that on our to-do list.
Okay.
All right, with that, Sarah, let's get into things
we want to share.
Things we want to share. Things we want to share. Things we want to share.
Well, we mentioned at the top of the show that this May, Star Wars month, has started off with a bang. And yes, it has, because each night we have done something Star Wars, starting with May 1st, and a Return of the Jedi screening at an IMAX theater. And we went with our good friends, the Turkells, Bryn, and Dave Scale.
Yeah, and a lot of people were asking, what version of Return of the Jedi is this? It could be one of many, many versions, but it is the 2011 Blu-ray version. And we know that because when R2 and 3PO are walking up to Jabba's palace, the door is like 3 times the size.
Oh.
Yeah, it's much, much bigger than the original Return of the Jedi or the special edition. And we see a Doug, the Sebulba alien, walking around Jabba's palace.
Okay, yeah, and I definitely saw that. It's in the shadows, but you can see it. So I'm glad.
Yeah, another tie-in to the prequels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now since its release on April 28th of this year, Return of the Jedi landed in the 5th spot on the box office charts, which is really impressive because it was just released in only 475 theaters. So that's pretty good, and it has grossed $5.6 million as of when we looked up that number.
Which was 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
So congratulations to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Not to anyone in particular, just to Return of the Jedi.
Now, because it's on the big screen, you often notice a little bit more than usual. Was there something in particular that stood out to you this particular screening?
Oh, so much.
You have to do like one thing.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Princess Leia's makeup.
Hey!
What?
That was gonna be my thing.
Okay, well,
specifically her under eyeliner.
All right, hold on. You asked me, then we'll go on to you.
Okay.
Now, not so. Hold on. Not so much one thing, because there were a lot of little things and I didn't write them down. But I'm gonna say that since we've had a lot of the cast and crew from Return of the Jedi on the show, whenever we would see Jabba the Hutt, I would think, oh yeah, John Coppinger had sculpted Jabba the Hutt. And thinking about all the stories he told us, seeing Kevin Thompson as an Ewok in the Endor battle, I'm thinking, oh yeah, Kevin had told us all about this. Or Alan Fling, who played an Imperial commander on the Super Star Destroyer. I was nudging you, Sarah, going, hey, look, there's our friend Alan Fling.
It's the scene. And Bryn was like, hey, that's the guy. Yeah.
So a lot of those stories and all those memories were popping up as we were watching the film.
Yes. And then all of us
Princess
girls,
Leia's makeup.
All of us girls who were there were like, wow, she has a lot of under eyeliner in Return of the Jedi and no eyeliner on top. It's really weird, but it's just really noticeable when you're watching it. And, she's in the forest and she's got some nice makeup on. You wouldn't think she'd have that nice makeup on in the forest.
All right, side note here. You go to a lot of these makeup classes in
Oh,
Burbank.
yes.
And we get some questions to ask these people. If they're makeup artists, professionals, ask them about that.
Okay, yeah.
Why do you think they had done that? And I also want to get into what tone of makeup Mark Hamill wore in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yes.
I want that particular orange.
Yes.
So if you haven't seen Return of the Jedi in the re-release for the 40th anniversary, you have about 12 more hours.
Yeah, do it. Do it now. Do it tonight.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It leaves the theaters tomorrow, May the 4th.
So it's still going on tomorrow.
Still going on. Yes,
so,
yes.
yeah.
At the end of the day tomorrow, so you have about 36 more hours. Go.
Okay. All right. Well, Star Wars Month continued on May 2nd.
What sure did.
Because we attended the first Disneyland After Dark Star Wars night at Disneyland. And this was also with Courtney and Kelly Turkel of the Neverland Clubhouse podcast and our friend Dave Scale. And it was super fun. So we're going to give a rundown. Now, we've been to several of these Star Wars nights now. I think this is the third one in like 3 years. Yeah. And so they've been fun, but they seem to be kind of harried. And this time I feel like...
Hold on. I'm going to use the word lackluster in the past.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think Disney has really, they send out surveys, we fill out surveys. They really listen and respond to the fans because I feel like each of these Disneyland After Dark events are getting better and better run.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this one here, when we saw the rundown, I was getting a little excited, but okay. Will you live up to what I have now pictured in my head?
Yes.
I'm going to say, a big time yes.
Yes.
Yeah, these After Dark events have been hit or miss. Unfortunately, more miss than hit.
Not this year, though.
But, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. But this year was a home run. That's a sports reference, right?
It is.
Okay, it was a home run. This was so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it started out like they released the schedule about 2 weeks in advance of what to expect, like food, characters, step into the scene photos, which is where you just go into a scene like Bo-Katan's throne or things like that with your group. And so the one thing I really wanted to do Queen Amidala. So they were going to have this character photo op with Queen Amidala. And honestly, we usually don't do the character photo ops because the lines usually get really long, and we knew that all the Star Wars nights were sold out.
It's funny. You wanted to see Queen Amidala. I wanted to see R5D4.
Well, and you know what? We split up and we conquered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that you saw R5D4.
Well, tell us the backstory about Queen Amidala.
I will, because so we knew that she'd be a big ticket item because she had not appeared at a Star Wars Night event. The only time I've seen a Queen Amidala, I think, is, well, at celebrations with cosplayers. But here, when it's a character at Disneyland, they're going to be prepped and, you know, they're going to speak to you like they're the character, right?
Yeah.
So it was
very
super
much
important.
in universe.
Yes. And we also heard that she was going to be in the Fantasyland Theater, which is like the premier spot to meet a character. And it's right next to the castle. And it's just got this beautiful stage and backdrop. So we all got in line about 30 minutes before the event even started. And the line was super long. So
I've never seen a meet and greet line as full and dense as this. It wasn't even a line. It was like a dense crowd of people.
Oh, yeah. And people had started lining up for her, I'm sure, like an hour and a half before the event even started. So then I left to go get a good fireworks spot because I knew this line was going to be hours long. And as like 5 minutes to fireworks, well, Richard, first you left to go get photos with R5D4.
Yeah, when we go to these events, I don't want to wait in line because you're sucking up a lot of your time in line, and you only have 4 hours. You think 4 hours, you can do all this. No, you can't do this all in 4 hours. So we divided and conquered.
Yes.
Yeah, so you stayed in line for Padme, for Amidala, and Dave and I ran over to Galaxy's Edge for the lightsaber meetup and to see R5D4, but more on that in a second.
Okay, so basically, I'm ready for fireworks. It's 5 minutes till showtime, and I get this frantic text, Sarah, come back. They're giving us wristbands. I was like, ah. So I left my spot, which once you leave a spot in front of the castle for fireworks, you ain't getting that back because the crowd of people was so dense just trying to get out of there. So I left the spot, got my wristband. We were told to return between 11 p.m. and midnight. And we had lined up, 30 minutes before the event. So not a lot of people.
At 8:30 p.m., we were all in line to see the Queen.
Yes. So, and unfortunately that meant that Richard and Dave could not get to see them because they weren't going to get wristbands because they couldn't be there. But regardless, so we got our wristbands. So should I go into then coming back later on and meeting Amidala?
You're on a roll. Go ahead.
All right. So we were so excited to meet Amidala. We went back in our time frame, and we got to the entrance to the theater and cast members were turning away people in droves. People were so upset, and we held up our hands. We're like, please let us in. And they're like, oh, go right in. And so we walk in, and it's got the beautiful music. What's the love theme?
Across the universe?
Across the stars.
Across the stars. Across
yes.
the universe.
It has the beautiful Across the
Beatles
Stars theme playing. There's this gorgeous Naboo backdrop. And Padme and Amidala is in her red robe with like the what looks like horns, like giant.
Yeah, this is the costume when she's approaching the Senate.
Okay.
This is when Palpatine is really manipulating her.
Yeah.
In the Senate.
Yeah, so, and she looks like spot on image, and the line was not very long because they were only letting in the people with the wristbands. So we maybe waited between 10 and 15 minutes. Now, as we were waiting, there was like an Anakin cosplayer kind of standing. It looked like he had just finished his photo with her. And then he started walking around, and he kind of came up to us. You could see him kind of start talking, and he looked like spot on, like Hayden Christensen back in the day, And
yeah, well, he was in his Revenge of the Sith outfit.
Okay.
And Amidala was in her Phantom Menace outfit.
Yeah. Which I didn't even register. But regardless, he had the scar, like makeup on. Anyway, so then we were us girls were talking to each other because there was only 4 of us girls. And we were like, wait, he's a character. we're getting a second character here. So not only are we meeting Amidala, which is like the big ticket item, all of a sudden Anakin is there. Now he's not taking pictures with Amidala, but he's there. He's protecting her. He's her bodyguard, right?
Yeah, her loyal bodyguard.
Yes. And so he walked around the theater. He would take selfies with people, took a video, but I don't know. He this person had the Force or something because he charmed the pants out of all the ladies there. Like, we were like giddy to get photos and selfies with him. And then
oh, just say it. You were Twitter pated.
We were Twitter paid. So this was really funny because our group was 4 girls. The group in front of us was like 3 girls and a guy. And they had just exited the Fantasyland Theater. After we took our photos, we exited and they were still standing there. And all of a sudden, like in one, us girls were like, oh my God, it was Anakin. Like, we started like yelling or screaming. We were like, oh, he's so cute. I'm so Twitter pated. It was hilarious. But he like made me blush. He was so cute.
Yeah, go to our Instagram and YouTube shorts.
Yeah.
And you'll see the little exchange.
Yeah, so I have an Amidala short up so you can see the whole exchange that we had with her. And then my little exchange with Anakin, which I went to do a selfie and it was in video mode. And I was like, oh, I guess it's in video mode. And he was like, may the Force be with you, without skipping a beat.
I was over in Galaxy's Edge and I heard Sarah squeal.
Oh my God, I'm like blushing now. He's so cute. But now part of this is because when I first met Richard, we were at a dance. Now we're in the Fantasyland Theater, which is also where they swing dance. But I met Richard out swing dancing. He was in his Anakin Skywalker outfit. So I think it's a little bit of a sense memory there too.
I was waiting for that part of the story to pop up.
Yeah. But oh my God, it was so cool. Oh, okay.
That was fun.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump over to one of my meet and greet times when I had seen The Mandalorian and Fennec Shand over in Galaxy's Edge. And this was a highlight just because we only had seen Mandalorian one other time, and we saw the back of him as he was walking backstage. Mm-hmm. So it was great to see him out and about. And I want to say he was with Fennec Shand, but kind of like with Anakin, sometimes it's hard to tell with the high level of cosplayers these days.
Yes.
It's very hard to tell who's a cosplayer and who isn't. Who is a walk-around Disney cast member. And the Fennec Shand that was there, I could tell she was getting a little ticked off because no one was really acknowledging her. And I thought, oh, then she must be a cast member because she's getting ticked off that no one is wanting to take pictures with her. But you have someone big and silver like the Mandalorian who's holding Grogu in his side satchel.
With Grogu.
Yeah, come on.
No one's going to compete against Grogu.
Yeah. So it was really fun and exciting to see that. I want to know who did the voice for that because it didn't sound like Pedro Pascal.
Okay.
But nonetheless, it was still exciting to see him and the little animatronic Grogu in his bag.
Aww.
That was a great highlight. Why they don't have the Mandalorian at a place where you can take a picture. He was walking around, so it was very hard to get a good picture.
Yeah. Did you get some like video of him a little bit?
I got some video, yes.
Okay. Will you be sharing? Okay.
Big time, yeah.
All right, we'll share.
I want
reels
like
and shorts.
a background with the Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yeah.
But then again, if you want that, you go to Celebration, you go to Comic-Con. In a couple of weeks, there's what do you call it? Ontario Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So yeah,
be a lot there.
If we didn't get the picture then, we'll get it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. This photo ops really surprised me at this Star Wars night, and that's one reason I want to go into how they're improving, because I feel like all the Star Wars nights are sold out, but there are 4 of them this year, and I think they spread it out and maybe sold less tickets per night to allow people to do more things, because towards the end of the evening we were up on Main Street and there's a photo op with Ezra and Sabine, and he switches out with Captain Rex, and also there's the 7th sister on the other side of Main Street, and we got both of those characters within about 20 minutes. Like it was fabulous. And that there was that much time that we can get, like in all these other Disneyland After Dark events, we've never gotten pictures with the characters. So I think they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah. Oh, big time, big time.
Yeah.
I love the interplay between when you have two characters like Sabine and Ezra.
Yeah. And Ezra was so playing off like he was so naive. You know, it was so cute. He's like, wait, is this Disneyland? What?
So he was like Ezra season 2.
Oh yeah, totally. And at one point I wanted
Rebels
them,
season 2 to be exact.
Yes, I wanted them to do like a fangirl flail, and I was like showing him how to flail, and he's like, oh, like a Sarlacc. It was so cute. I was like, yeah, that's it. Oh, it's adorable.
All right, I'm going to jump over to another adorable experience. That was meeting R5D4, who was with a Jawa.
Yeah, how was that? Was the Jawa trying to steal things from your pocket?
The Jawa was holding onto a C-3PO leg. But, but yeah, the Jawa could have used someone there to attend to their costume.
Oh no!
Because they're black, the material over their face was coming loose. You could see the performer.
Oh
the performer's neck. Yeah,
Oops.
yeah. And then I could see the R5D4 controller a couple of feet away, so I'd put my hand on R5D4 and I'd look over to him like, oh, is this okay? And he'd look away like, what, why are you asking me for? I got nothing to do with this. It's like, well, I can see your controller right there, but since we have so much experience with R2 builders, it was just one of those things like, okay, I know what to look for, but still, I loved R5D4. Always loved the action figure when I got him back in 1978.
Yeah.
And wanted some pictures, and it was fun because it was a new character, once again another new character that has never been there. I'm glad it wasn't R2 and 3PO because we'd seen them before.
Yeah, we have seen them before.
Yeah, but it was said that 3PO was going to be there somewhere, but I never saw 3PO unless they changed out R5D4 with C-3PO.
So I think possibly over at in Tomorrowland at the place I can never remember the name, but where we saw R2, where we were walking very slowly to see R2.
Oh, Launch Bay.
Launch Bay. At Star Wars Launch Bay, right outside of Launch Bay, they had this photo op with just R2, but if you hit it at the right moment, Luke and Leia popped out sometimes and did like 15-minute sets. So perhaps they C-3PO popped out too.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Luke and Leia were in their episode 4 outfits.
Oh, did you see them?
I saw a video.
We saw the video.
Saw the video, yeah. And they looked really good.
Yeah,
really good.
Well, Jen Diz from the Disney Holics podcast was there, and we met up with them, and I think she showed you the video.
Okay, that's where I
hit
saw
it at the right time. So.
Yeah. I'm not into the big photos for the characters, but sometimes when they're new,
or when you have to get it. Like,
or,
for me, Amidala was like a must have, which is...
Or when it's like nostalgic.
Yeah.
Like R5D4 to me is nostalgic.
Fantasia Mickey for me is nostalgic. Things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking R5D4 from The Mandalorian. That's why R5D4 was there. Wasn't until later on where I saw a little boy, like a 3-year-old little kid dressed up as The Mandalorian. I made the connection.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he totally has a big part. Big part. And in the comics.
Yeah.
All right, now beyond the characters, they also have photo ops that usually take a little bit less time, and we do a lot of these. They're called Step Into the Scene. And so the one we really wanted to do was the Bo-Katan throne photo op, but they had it all lined up where you got the Boba Fett's throne, the Emperor's throne, and Bo-Katan's throne in one line. So we waited like quite a while for that, probably half an hour at least for that photo. Yeah. But then we all each got our own throne picture on each of those. And I had my new Armorer Loungefly backpack, which served as my helmet that I put on each of the thrones. I loved it. But we got fun photos.
Yeah. And this is the first time they've ever brought out Bo-Katan's
throne. Yeah.
And everyone did the same pose.
Oh, yeah. Well, even
one leg up, one leg down.
The photographer was like telling people what to do. They're like, okay, now do this, do a pose here. Yeah, it was so cute. It was like, they knew.
Yeah.
They knew.
See, it was a good concept, too, hitting each of the thrones. So, once again, they really scored big on that experience.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk about the lightsaber meetup. Now you
Okay.
were waiting in line to see
I totally missed this.
to see Amidala, and Dave and I went over to the lightsaber meetup, which was going to happen like once every hour on the hour, and that's where everyone who has lightsabers go up to the Millennium Falcon and you hoist them in the air. And this time around, there was no like Disney photographer.
What?
Someone just said, "Everyone lights up." Everyone lit up their lightsabers, and that was it.
My.
That was it. And
That's
when we've
how
done it in the
odd.
past, yeah, there has been a Disney photographer up on a step stool getting a really nice shot.
Yeah. Were they lined up like in color
No,
groups?
no.
What?
It was just like a big free for all.
How odd.
Right. But the best part about this was the after show. What? An after show? Yes, finally they're doing shows. And this is what we've been wanting since the opening of Galaxy's Edge, to see little pop-up shows. And they did this, where someone came out and was recruiting for the Resistance.
Now, where was this set?
This was up in the little plaza right by Docking Bay 5, the restaurant. You have the little sitting area.
Docking Bay 7?
Docking Bay, the restaurant, yes.
Okay, Docking Bay 7.
Docking Bay 7,
Okay.
yes.
Oh, so it was in the plaza where people usually sit and
Yes.
look over the Falcon.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Resistance sympathizer was up there and said, okay, if you see the First Order, you're going to lower your lightsabers because they'll know that you're sympathizers. And then across the plaza, up on the big railway, on the big...
By the Falcon?
Yeah.
Like behind the Falcon? Okay.
Yeah, right on the overpass, the little bridge, the bridge.
Oh, my.
You had Chewie, you had Rey, you had several other Galaxy's Edge cast members up there, and they were all rallying the troops for the Resistance. But then, you know things had to go wrong, and they do. And the Imperial commander came and started arresting people. Stormtroopers were surrounding, but then because everyone was united, we all overthrew the First Order.
Now this will be a reel as well.
Yes.
You get it? Okay.
Yeah.
I have not seen this yet because we got home very late, slept, and yeah. So I'm excited.
It was a fun 5-minute show, which begs the question: why aren't they doing this on a
More
regular
often.
basis?
Yeah.
This is what we've always wanted, these little shows, and finally they're making use of all these little staging areas.
Mm-hmm.
And
finally,
yeah, I don't know why, but you know what? I'm happy with what we got.
Yeah.
All right. If this is going to be something that they're going to roll into, fine. I'm not going to look back. I'm going to look forward and keep at it. Please keep at it. So yeah, this will be a reel on YouTube and on Instagram sometime the next day or so.
awesome. All right, should we get into a little food?
Oh, let's get into a lot of food.
Okay.
Oh, this stuff was good.
One thing we always like to do is try some of the special foods they have for the evening. Now, we don't try to try everything because that's like ridiculous, but
And
we'll
fattening.
try some of the things. So Galactic Grill had a number of things. So we basically bought out what they had that was special for that evening, and that included a pineapple coconut juice, which needed to have a more fun name, but it was really good. And that was great to wash down your meal, either your savory or your sweet. And then we also had, well, I did not have this, but the Turkels tried the Bosk Brew. And it's this green drink with sodas in it, and it has a scoop of lime sherbet, I would say. And that tasted, according to them, like Mountain Dew with a scoop of lime sherbet. So it was like, okay. As soon as you tasted it, it's like, okay, that's like Mountain Dew. And then we tried the Phyrexian fries, and this is waffle cut fries. And on top, they have chorizo and guacamole and black beans and cheese. And this was super good. I would have got this again. I hope this becomes a regular menu item at Galactic Grill because I really enjoyed the Phyrexian fries. Did you like the Phyrexian fries?
I did like the Phyrexian fries, but if you get them, eat them right away because when they get cold,
Soggy, yeah.
yeah, because
Not
there's a
as
lot
good.
of stuff on them,
Mhm.
and they do get soggy. So eat them right away.
Okay. All right. And then finally, we had to try the Wookiee Parfait. There's a reel right now you can watch. It is all milk chocolate all the time with little milk chocolate pearls in there and hints of caramel. It was really good.
It was really. I'm not a big dessert person, but this was good.
Yeah, it had like chocolate cake as well. It's a parfait, so it has like different layers. And it was very, very yummy. You can also purchase, like mobile order, the Grogu sipper, which just came out that evening. That was available to purchase. And I think that's like $30 now or $32.
It's not really that big.
Yeah, so we didn't get it. It was super cute. We saw a bunch of people with it. So that was very, very cute. All right. Wow, we're talking a lot about this. So do we have a wish list for next time? Like anything blue sky it? What would you do differently?
I would say bring back the elaborate step-in scenes. Like when we did the Run Disney races, they had the big trash compactor set.
Like it was compacting on you? Yeah.
Yeah, the Wampa Cave. I want more of those kinds of photo ops. Like the throne rooms are fine, but they're very small and condensed.
They're very small, and sometimes the photographers don't get the whole throne. It's like what?
When you say sometimes, they never do.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
You got better photos of me when she was taking my photo on Bo-Katan's throne. So thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right, so that's one of my wish list items. What do you have?
You know what? I think it would be fun. Like you said, Galaxy's Edge kind of came to life more for you because of that show, that 5-minute show. I feel like they should do a few more things in Galaxy's Edge. Like I didn't spend really any time in Galaxy's Edge at all because, we were getting photo ops and stuff around the park. But I feel like they should have like droid races or have the actual droids roaming around like they originally promised just for Star Wars night, or even costumed aliens.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. That you could just talk to, maybe go on the bounty hunt and be like, hey, do you have any hints? Like stuff like that. Like some Twi'leks, like that are dedicated to their performers in costume.
Yeah, and the Resistance leader that began the show right after the lightsaber meetup, he did say that look out for any Resistance members who might come up to you and have you do this or that. And when Dave and I were at Galaxy's Edge, we looked around, but honestly, I didn't see any of that.
They probably picked out kids. There weren't a lot of kids though.
Yeah.
In the evening, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see. I wore my R2-D2 blazer, so I thought, okay, this is like one of these pick me jackets.
Yeah, you're gonna show up.
Right. All right, now for that's a good idea to have those characters and have droid races and even have like those little street bands you saw in the Mandalorian.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, on Navarro, have some of those.
Although they did do the Cantina band popped up above the
Golden Horseshoe.
Yeah, the Golden Horseshoe restaurant and did little set of the 2 songs that they play. Of the Cantina songs, and they did it, and they were performers, like in costume,
yeah, they were going
dancing
nuts
around.
too.
Oh, they were so fun! Like, oh my god, it was so funny.
Yeah, these Bith members, they had some sugar before showing up.
Yes, and it's literally like 3 minutes that they're up there, but if you catch it, which we happened to, it was so much fun.
Yeah, for characters, last couple of times they had Ahsoka.
Yes.
Why not have Ahsoka this time and put her in the Disney Plus outfit? I don't understand that. Why didn't they have Andor out there? Cassian Andor with B2?
Yeah.
Oh, come
B2
on. How awesome would that have been?
And okay, most glaring of all, Bo-Katan, who has been the star of this season of The Mandalorian, was not there as a character. That would have been amazing.
So they made a lot of great decisions.
Yes.
But then again, some decisions, they had dropped the ball. And I'm sure they have a reason.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they have a reason. So
I'm sure.
We won't critique them until they give us a call. Now, okay, is this a good or bad suggestion?
Okay.
If they sold bricks.
Like Ferrix bricks?
Like Ferrix bricks. And
people would buy them.
Part of the Marva collection.
Yeah.
Because, at the end of Andor, Marva was made into a brick. So is that a good idea to sell these bricks? Because you're thinking, okay, whose remains am I holding?
They would have to do like the personalized bricks. I think that would be cool. You know how they personalize hats? And personalize a Ferrix brick? Although that's kind of weird.
It is kind of weird.
I don't know.
They would sell out.
Yeah.
Maybe they had a little collection of like Anakin Skywalker,
Oh, no.
or maybe
Yoda.
some of the fallen Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
Okay, Okay, Christopher Marino says here in the Sky Chat, make them chocolate.
I mean,
I think this idea is getting worse.
well, initially when we were talking after the event, I had the idea that we should, or you had an idea to do a brick wall for the fallen characters, like that, a step into the scene one, where you could take a picture with like the bricks of Ferrix, and then I wanted them to have like a brick you could actually hold and like pretend to like, you know, lop a stormtrooper over the head or something.
I guess maybe going more on the macabre
I know.
side of Star Wars.
Come on.
You know what? We'll put that on the B list.
What do you guys think? Let us know. All right, but Christopher Marino saw a video where Chopper was roaming around.
What?
We did not see Chopper. Maybe he was there earlier because we didn't get up to, like, by Ezra and Sabine.
Yeah.
We didn't get up to them until well after midnight. It was almost closing, so maybe he was there earlier in the evening.
Yeah, a lot of characters were changing out.
Yeah.
Captain Rex had left, and Ezra and Sabine had come in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of characters that we don't even know about yet. So, Christopher Marino, when you go to Star Wars Nite on what you said, May the 8th.
Okay.
Yeah, let us know what other characters you see, or any Skywalkers. What characters did you see that we didn't even know about?
Yeah, he said Chopper was roaming around Galaxy's Edge, which is exactly what I would ask for. So I missed that because I didn't spend a lot of time in Galaxy's Edge. So, you know, this goes to show Christopher is smart. He is going 2 nights. So I want to know, Christopher, are you going to focus on one thing on the first night and another thing on the second night? Because I think it would be fun to just hang out in Galaxy's Edge for one of these nights.
Yeah.
And just see.
Because I'm sure more had happened than I had witnessed.
Yeah.
I want to hope so.
Yeah.
There was one guest there dressed up as Black Chrysanthemum.
Wow.
But his face was all face painted. But from the back, it's like, oh, is there a Black Chrysanthemum character walking around Galaxy? And he turned around, it's like, okay, it's a guest.
Yeah.
But he looks great.
That's amazing.
And by the time I got my phone out, he had disappeared.
Yeah.
And I didn't see him again.
So a lot of people did dress up. That reminds me, a lot of people dressed up. But one of the people that really stood out to me where we were going into Galaxy's Edge before the event started, and it was like magic hour. And all of a sudden we saw these guys in these white outfits with big domed heads, and they were Spaceballs. They were Spaceballs walking around, two big guys. Oh my god!
In the white jumpsuits.
In the white jumpsuits and the big round helmets.
Big ping pong helmet.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Those are the characters I want to take pictures with, or if I was going to cosplay, do something more obscure. and more and that people will go, oh, I never thought of that. Mm-hmm. Like being Walrus Man at Celebration. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah.
All right.
We have a question here.
Mark in the Sky Chat is asking, did you see Rey or BB-8? We saw Rey at Galaxy's Edge during that Big Resistance show.
Okay.
BB-8?
Yes. We saw BB-8 somewhere. He was available as a photo op that we did not do. And he was not a real BB-8 moving. He was right by Frontierland, by the entrance to Big Thunder Mountain. So yeah, there's like a photo backdrop that you can stand next to BB-8, but it's not a real BB-8, and it doesn't move. It's just a statue. Right. Yeah, and similarly, K2SO was a statue as well, with a background of that planet.
Of Jeddah.
Yeah.
With a Star Destroyer or Jeddah City.
Yeah.
That was a great time.
It's really cool.
All right, with that, before we get into our discussion with HAL HICKEL, let's tell all the Skywalkers where we're going to be in the next month or so.
Okay.
Let's start with tomorrow. Tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m.
May the 4th.
May the 4th. We are so excited that ABC 7, which is an ABC affiliate here in Los Angeles, they contacted us to talk about fandom and the future of Star Wars. So we're going to be their Star Wars experts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I hope they have a large time slot carved out for us because we got lots to say. So this will be at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah. And I'm sure it'll be live on their channels.
Yeah, it'll be live on their website.
Yeah.
And does TV still exist? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but we'll share with you guys.
Exactly.
We're excited. We're excited to see what happens. Yeah.
Then on May the 13th, Saturday, we will be at the Santa Fe Springs Comics Fest, which is held at the Santa Fe Springs Library. And once again, May the 13th from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. And this is like what we had done a couple of weeks ago at Anaheim, where a library opens up for local artists and authors to sell their stuff. And so we're going to have Today in Star Wars History Part 1 and 2 there.
There will probably be 501st members there to take pictures with.
We'll have our new Skywalking Through My Fandom book, which is selling really well. So thank you to all the Skywalkers who has picked up a copy.
In fact, we need to send a few out right after this recording as well. So yeah, you can find that at skywalkingthroughneverland.com/book. But all these events that we're talking about are on our events page on Facebook. So you can get the details there. We are excited about that. And Ontario Comic-Con, we're going to be there from May 20th through 21st. So lots of times in May that you guys can see us face to face, say hello. This is in Ontario, California. We will have a table.
And on Sunday, the 21st, which is the 43rd anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back, we are going to hold the Star Wars Trivia Challenge Strikes Back at 11:30. And we are so excited. If you had joined us for any of our trivia nights we held during the pandemic, you'll know how much fun we have at trivia. This is going to be a blast. So if you're at Ontario Comic Con, May the 20th, 21st, come by and say hello. Come by our trivia panel. It's going to be, I can't say it enough times. I'm so looking forward to this.
Yeah. All right, then coming up in June 30th through July 3rd, we will be at WesterCon in Anaheim, California. We will have a table there too, selling our books. And we're finalizing our panels there as we speak.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here. So we're going to do two panels. And I want to do the Trivia Challenge Strikes Back. That'll be one. The other panel, okay, you Skywalkers weigh in too. We could either do the history of Star Wars history, which is a panel we had done at Celebration a couple of years ago. It was so much fun. Or we can do another panel that we had just written called Campy Star Wars from Comics and Cartoons to the Cinema.
Well, that sounds snappy and fun.
So you're going with that one?
That just sounds fun and like it'll bring people in. Campy Star Wars.
Okay, so this
we love campy Star Wars.
Yeah, so if you've been listening, and I hope you have, to our classic Marvel Star Wars comics, you'll see all the foreshadowing those comics do to later Star Wars films and TV shows, like Cloud Riders, who appeared in the original Star Wars comics in 1977. Now you see him in Solo. You see in the Droids cartoon Kylo Ren. Sound familiar? Kylo Ren. So there's so much campy, fun crossovers, and you got to know that the Lucasfilm Story Group had borrowed some here and there. So we've been gathering all this information the last couple of years, and
I
now
love it.
Okay, let's make this into a panel. So Sarah, what do you say?
Campy Star Wars, man.
Let's
see what you guys say. Don Glover will be there. So Don, really, your opinion matters.
Yeah, so Don, weigh in here, because I need to send this off today.
So what are the two
panel.
of them? So tell them.
There's two out of the three. We can do the Star Wars Trivia Challenge, and we have the campy Star Wars from Comics and Cartoons to the Cinema, or History of Star Wars History.
Which also sounds fun.
Yes. So we're gonna do two of those three. So Sarah, which ones do you want to do?
I mean, I always like doing the trivia.
Okay.
I think that'll be fun. Although, I mean, History of Star Wars History would help probably sell the book.
Right.
Which, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah. So,
I'm good with doing those two panels.
Oh, okay, History of Star Wars History and campy Star Wars?
Yeah, then I don't have to choose between those two.
Okay. All right. So I think I know which way we're gonna go.
Okay.
So thank you, Skywalkers. This has been weighing on me for quite some time.
Nice.
All right. With that, sit back and enjoy these amazing stories coming up from Animation Supervisor HAL HICKEL.
Hello, everyone. This is Misty Roses, and I am skywalking through Neverland. I have spoken.
You know, oddly enough, you sounded just like Nick Nolte there.
The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian. He's a bounty hunter. He's traveled in the galaxy. He's picking up assets and blowing up Jawas and collecting the bounty. The Mandalorian.
I have spoken. The Mandalorian Season 3 just wrapped up. It was a very exciting season with canyon starship battles, Mandalorian clashing in the air with jet-packing troopers, and creatures. Lots and lots of big creatures.
Academy Award winner HAL HICKEL led the digital animation team that brought all those memorable scenes to life. And he also gave the Midas touch to so many great Star Wars moments that we know and love.
Now, let's talk zeros and ones with HAL HICKEL.
Hey, Hal!
Hi, nice to see you all. Thanks for having me.
I think we just named your first podcast, Hey, Hal.
It's alliterative. I like it.
Or you can do the Hey, HAL HICKEL.
I know, your whole name is an alliteration. It's amazing.
It's like a Marvel character, like Peter Parker or something. So yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah. Or Lois Lane. Well, that's more DC. Sorry.
Oh.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on our big May the 4th episode. So, how are you going to be spending the Star Wars holiday?
Working. Yeah, but yeah, working on stuff. It's funny because I know May the 4th is now the big Star Wars day, and it's great. I think it's awesome. But for me, May the 25th is always sort of the day for me, just because that's when, not only when the first Star Wars came out, but it became kind of a lucky charm for George, and he would release films on that date. So I just think of that as like the Star Wars day. But of course, May the 4th makes all kinds of sense, and it's lovely. So, but yeah, I'll probably be working.
In this social media day and age, May the 4th is just so ripe for puns.
Right.
But yeah, come on, let's face it. May 25th is the official Star Wars day.
For me, it is. Yeah. For me, it
Yeah.
is, for sure.
Now, you are an animation supervisor, so that's what you'll be doing on May the 4th. But can you tell us what that entails?
For any visual effects project that Industrial Light and Magic does, there's always a visual effects supervisor. And the visual effects supervisor is the overall creative lead for the project. There is as well a visual effects producer, always, is partnering with the visual effects supervisor to, budget, schedule, and all that stuff, work with the studio and do all those things. But for shows where there's a significant amount of creatures, characters, monsters, dinosaurs, droids, even vehicles that need to move around, then there will be someone like me on the project, an animation supervisor. Now at ILM, traditionally, the Anim Soup has had a slightly elevated position, I would say, compared to some other visual effects companies. And I think that's due to some strong characters along the way, like Phil Tippett, Rob Coleman, Spaz Williams, and some other folks who over the years really played a big role in sort of the animation side of the visual effects work at ILM. Also, we all look back to Ray Harryhausen, who's kind of the granddad of all this, and he himself was an animator. And so anyways, so just to say, at ILM, on a show where there's a big creature component, the trio kind of leading the show will be the VFX producer and Anim Soup. And my job really is to give the animators feedback. Well, first and foremost, it's to get to know the director and understand their vision. Same as the visual effects supervisor does. We talk to the director, we try to understand what they are trying to achieve, strategize with them about the best way to do it, whether to do things practically or digitally or whatnot. Then I'll be on set as much as I need to be for scenes where we're going to be doing creatures later on. I'm not there all the time. The visual effects supervisor is there all through shooting, but I just kind of come and go as needed for scenes that are going to include our creatures to advise on set. I really enjoy that part of the process. Actually, it's one of my favorite parts. Then once we get into post-production and the cut sequences are turned over to us, then I start working with my animation team, my animators, and I'll do a kickoff with them of a sequence and just help with my production coordinator will help assign shots to all the animators. And it's sort of like casting to actors. You sort of cast to the different animator strengths and then give them feedback on the work. And when it's ready, present it to the director and listen to their notes and relay those back to the animators and keep working till we get it all done. That's kind of the job.
Do you follow storyboards, or do you use that as more of a template? And you having a big background in this, say, you know what, I know what you want, so let me take the storyboards and what I know, and then give it to the director and see what he thinks or she.
It depends on the project and the director. Some directors really like boards. Some directors really like previs. You know, that sort of video game level. Well, what used to video games now look amazing. They look like movies, but what used to be video game level, sort of simplified animation to sort of plan the shots. Some directors like neither. They have the script, they have all their notes, they go to set, they walk the set with the DP and other folks and start coming up with the coverage sort of on set, and may only board or previs just really technically demanding scenes. So it's different for every director. Usually though, particularly because the stuff we're working on tends to be the most, you know, in a movie, that the big visual effects sequences tend to be the most technically demanding. So typically they are at least boarded and usually previs nowadays. A lot of times that's done outside of ILM. In other words, it's done on, the director has a team, an art department, a storyboard artist, a previs team, but not always. Sometimes we tackle that ourselves, or sometimes we work with their team while that stuff's happening to make sure that good choices are made and the plans that are laid down ahead of shooting will make sense all the way down the line, and we won't paint ourselves into a corner. And that's the best way to work. And that's usually what happens, but not always. Sometimes we just inherit previs or footage that was shot from previs, and we just get the footage and okay, go, and we, you know, make the best of it. But in the, you know, most cases we're in early, way before shooting begins, way in pre-production, planning with the director of the art department, with stunts, with all the different departments, the DP, working with them to plan, like, okay, the best, if this is the result we want, this is the best way to shoot this. And of course it has to fit into schedule and budget and safety and all those considerations. And but then, you know, once we start our work, by that time usually we've got the cut scene, we've got the footage to work from. We may still have the boards on hand to refer back to, because sometimes along the way the mission will drift, sort of, you know, and we'll start going, you know, when this was boarded, the whole idea of it was, when we got to this shot, it was a big surprise because blah blah blah, and we've sort of lost that here. Do we want to try and move this around or recapture it? So we might do that, and that might be the same with the previs too. There might be something in the previs that was great that somehow got a little soft once it was shot, and so then we might strategize on how to kind of get that back into the sequence. And so all those things play a part in the creation of the work, for sure.
Got it. Now, you said you worked closely with the visual effects supervisor and you're the animation supervisor. So what is the difference between those two?
So the visual effects supervisor has to put their eye to every visual effects shot in the film, whether it has animation in it or not. And so in other words, environments, big explosions, whatever, every visual effects shot. I only have to think about when there's a creature, character, droid, monster, dinosaur, moving vehicle that's CG, those kinds of things. So it's a visual effects supervisor is a bigger, broader responsibility. But, you know, in the best cases, the anim soup and the VFX soup are partners and trust each other. And, you know, I worked with John Knoll on a lot of projects now, on 7 or 8 projects now. And we just get along great. John is, you know, there's no visual effects supervisor I respect more in the industry, and, you know, his taste and everything. And he respects me and lets me kind of do my thing. Like, he's not always looking over my shoulder. Now, that said, if he feels like there's something doesn't feel right physically or realistically or, well, in any sense, he'll let me know. And we have, you know, we just have we have a
shorthand. Thank
you. That's what we have a shorthand for that because we work together so much. So, that's the best for me, to my way of thinking, that's the best method. Although I should say, I've known VFX soups who, for instance, prefer to present all the work, even the anim work, to the director themselves, to be kind of a single point of contact creatively with the director. And there's a case for that. I get that. John and I have never worked that way. I present all the anim work to the director. John presents all the final work and all the stuff that's non-anim and everything else. And I've always appreciated that, because I like interacting, getting to know directors on projects and then interacting with them is another sort of favorite part of the job for me. It's just, directors are interesting people, and it's fun to sort of get inside their heads and figure out what makes them laugh and what they're looking for in the project and how to sort of achieve that. And that's a fun journey. And I don't think I'd like it very much if I was on a project where the VFX group said, well, don't worry about it, I'll present all the work. I think that would make me unhappy. But fortunately, I've never had that experience. I was very lucky. My first project at ILM as an anim soup, I'd been there for several years as an animator and then a lead animator, was AI, the Steven Spielberg film. And I had two great VFX soups on that, Scott Farrar and Dennis Murin. And they're two of the most storied VFX soups in the business. I have a lot of things to thank Dennis for, actually, for mentoring and helping me over the years before I came to ILM. But I think he was responsible for asking for me to be on that film. And I just couldn't have had two better teachers, like particularly when it came to the sort of etiquette of dealing with directors. In this case, Steven Spielberg, so you kind of don't want to put your foot in your mouth. So I could just watch them and follow them. And also on set etiquette, because as a visual effects person, particularly as the anim soup who's not there every day, it's easy to feel a little bit like a fish out of water and almost like a tourist. Like everybody else is working, everybody else is busy, the grips are running around, the camera assistant, everybody else has a job, and you're kind of standing there. You can feel a little conspicuous or out of place or whatever. And all I had to do was watch Dennis and Scott to sort of get a sense of how to be available, but not in the way when it was appropriate to break in on the director's concentration or the DP or anyone else's, and sort of give them, consult with them on stuff and say, hey, you know what, if we just can flag that light off a little bit more, we're going to save ourselves a lot of pain later on, or whatever the comment might be. Those guys were just like the best teachers for that. So the other great teacher I had was Rob Coleman. Rob was the animation director, animation supervisor, animation director, similar kind of titles on the prequel films, 1, 2, and 3. And I was an animator on his team on 1. And then between 1 and 2, I did AI. And so when I came on to 2, Rob brought me on as kind of an undersoup to like take on several sequences under him. And Rob, I feel like, taught me everything good that I know. Any good habits I have as an anim soup, I learned from Rob. He's great and he's brilliant. And he also, again, he could have presented all the work to George on Attack of the Clones, but he didn't. He insisted that it was myself and Chris Armstrong were the two sort of junior soups under him, and he insisted that we present our sequences to George. And I'll always be grateful to him for that. Not only because I learned a lot, but because it was my one opportunity to work, elbow to elbow with George on stuff. Because I didn't work on 3. I was busy on Pirates then, so I didn't work on 3. And on 1, I worked on 1 as an animator, but that didn't, other than seeing George in the theater during dailies, 4 rows ahead of me down below, I didn't really get to work with him. And so that was my one opportunity. It's always be super grateful for that.
Those are always the great stories you hear about Lucasfilm and ILM. They really nourish everybody, and no one just takes the credit for everything, but they really want to help everyone to really boost them up to the next level of their career. I've heard that so many times, and I credit them so much for that.
Yeah, ILM, I have to say, is really, I was always surprised, because I'd wanted to work at ILM since Star Wars came out, 1977, and I didn't join ILM till 1996. So, that's a long haul, but I got there. And and you can be intimidating, as you'd imagine, because particularly in '96 when I got there, a lot of the original members were still roaming the halls. Dennis, of course, but also Steve Galloway, Lauren Carpenter. I mean, tons of people. Bill George, who's actually still with us. A bunch of people that were there from the original trilogy days were at the company. So it's very intimidating. But what I found almost immediately is that it's a really low ego place. People don't do that thing, for instance, of hiding, like if they've got some special code or techniques or whatever that have been great for them, they don't like hoard that. Like if somebody else is like, oh man, I'm having so much trouble with this shot, and then, oh well, what are you doing? Oh, I wrote a script for that. Hang on a sec, I'll send it over to you, and I'll show you how to. It's almost like academia in a way, where there's sort of can be a culture of sharing and publishing papers and that sort of thing, sharing knowledge rather than hoarding it. And ILM's always been like that. At least that's my take on it. I know other people who feel that way as well. And it's funny too, because I've talked to people, just taking dailies as an example, my animation dailies. I found that dailies generally at ILM have always seemed very open to me and kind of democratic, because I know people from other studios or other backgrounds who are like, they like to keep things locked down and just like give the direction and not have it turn into a general discussion because that seems messy or something. I don't know why, but I'm like, when I have an animation dailies, I've got all those animator brains in the room. I want people to speak up if they see stuff. There's an etiquette to it. If a shot is just about done, that's not the time to say, hey, maybe you should come in from the left instead of the right, But it is the time to say, it looks like there's a little bump in the animation right there, just like a little jerk. Do you see that? That's time for that kind of note. Whereas if it's first take, then it is the time to say, this would be funnier if he just, if he didn't do all that business and just sort of stood up and looked, that would just be way funny. That's the time to have that discussion. And everybody knows that. And the other thing everybody knows is that you may get 20 different opinions in a room full of people, but it's up to me at the end of the discussion to say, okay, well, here's what I think we should do. And then just give them 3 notes or whatever it is and send the animator off knowing what to do next and not a head full of a whole conversation. And as long as you do those things, then it's super productive. But to me, and I've always felt like most dailies I've sat in, even when they weren't anim dailies, I felt like that to me at ILM. They're open. The supervisors don't get all ruffled if other artists start speaking up, and other artists don't get ruffled if other artists start speaking up. Because that's another thing, a barrier to get over sometimes, is that some people don't want to speak up because they don't want other people talking about that. You know what I mean? They just want to get their notes from the supervisor and then go off and do the work. They don't want 20 people to chime in on the shot. And I get that. I understand that. But anyways, just to say, it's a pretty open, creative environment and always has been. It's kind of the ethos of the place, really.
How far into the rendering do you do the dailies where you see where the shot is at that point? Do you wait a while until most of it is there so you can get a good feeling, or are you looking at wireframes?
Not wireframes anymore. Way back in the day, that was still a thing to save time. We don't have to do that anymore. We can have stuff shaded, but when we're at the animation stage, which is close to the beginning, the very beginning is you take the live action footage and you have to track what the camera did in it, what the real camera did, so that our CG camera moves the same way, so that we render things to go into the shot, they'll have the right perspective and motion to fit into the footage. That happens first. And when that is, we call it match moving or layout interchangeably. When that's done, we hand those over to the animators so they have essentially a stage in which to work with a camera that has the right movement on it. And then they start animating. And what we try to do is get a whole sequence, or if that's too cumbersome, or if for some reason some parts of that sequence have been delayed for whatever, from us being able to work on them, at least a continuous chunk of the sequence up to a first blocking, what we call blocking stage. So it's kind of rough animation that just kind of gives you a rough idea. The character's here, it's here, it's here, it kind of does this gesture, blah, blah, just enough to sell the idea of what the performance or movement is going to be. And across a sequence with 50 shots, you might be giving 3 shots to this animator and 4 to this animator and 3 to that animator, so you've got a whole team that are all working, and you've kind of given them a date, like, hey, we'd like to have first blocking on all your shots in 3 days or whatever it is, or in a week, because we want to show it to the director, or we at least want to have a first viewing with ourselves on this day. So they all go off and work, and I try not to bother them too much. They have the opportunity usually to submit during the day to say, hey, I'd love for you to come by my desk and take a look at this. In between like regular dailies reviews, you can have walkarounds or desk reviews. They'll usually just let the coordinator know. And then anyway, so you get to that state, and it's very flat. It's not even, I wouldn't even call it game quality. It's sort of, especially again, as I said, because games look so amazing these days. But it's kind of just flat shaded, sort of plastic looking, but it's good enough for us animators to look at and gauge the general idea of it. And then we'll all look at it together. And depending on the director, we may show it to the director at that stage, because, and I say depending, because some directors, they are very put off by the sort of rough look at that stage, and can't sort of see ahead to what it's going to be, which is understandable, particularly if a director really hasn't been through a big visual effects project before, because it's kind of a learned thing to be able to sort of extrapolate. So in those cases, we may wait a little longer. We may try to make our renders look a little prettier and spend a little more time kind of lighting them and making sure they're a little more representative, even if it's in a slightly cartoonish way of what the final shots might be, just to kind of ease them over that threshold so they can envision it. Because you want to be careful that ideas don't get rejected simply because they can't kind of see how great it's going to be. You want to make sure you're pitching the idea to the best extent you can. Anyways, but if you can, and hopefully you can, you sort of show it at that rough stage so you kind of know if you're in the ballpark or not, because they might be like, oh, you know what, I see this now as way too many shots. I think we could cut this down. Or, I think we have to recut this sequence, because I see what you guys have done here, and you follow the direction to the edit that we gave you. But now that I see it with the stuff in there, I feel like, all those things can happen. And so the sooner you can get feedback, the better, especially if it's going to change the edit, which it frequently does. But if significantly, you want to get that feedback as early as you can. But anyways, this is a very long answer to not a very long question. But at the anim stage, it's pretty simplistic renders usually. Then once anim is final, it goes off to lighting, and they'll work on it until the VFX supervisor feels like the lighting is representative of what they're trying to achieve. Kind of same with anim. You want to get it to the level that it's going to sell what you're going for, but it's not finished, obviously. You don't want to wait too long, because then you've put all your work into it. You've burned through all the hours that you were budgeted for the work. And then you get the feedback that, no, it's not supposed to be evening. It's supposed to be late afternoon or whatever, and you don't want that either. And that's always part of the balancing act that soups have, how early to show stuff, and, and in what form. And there's kind of a whole psychological aspect to it that's kind of fun, because again, you have to sort of suss out each director and see what their experience level is with visual effects, what their taste. Ages ago, I was working with the director for the first time, and it was the very first time I was showing them anything. And early on the reel, I had just a very simple animation test of some alien characters, but just plastic rendered in kind of a gray void, like, because they weren't even have a footage yet to put them in. It was just a movement test. And then a little later, I had another test for a creature that we'd really been struggling with. And then I was like, well, I'm going to put it in a piece of the footage from the film instead of just some CG limbo, do that. But anyways, this creature in a limbo was up first, and it put it in. This is the first time I met the director, and he looks at it and he says, "This is my worst CG nightmare come true." And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm fired." This was on set, by the way. It was between setups. We were just sitting there at his little video village. But then as he talked, I realized that it was entirely because it looked like a terrible looking video game. It wasn't. He couldn't just focus on, is this sort of movement style okay? And, this is just a rough version of the character, but, and I realized, okay, I'll never put this kind of thing in front of him again. Duly noted. And then the next thing up, where I had put the creature in the footage, he was like, oh, this is amazing. Because we sent some tests before, a movement test of this particular creature that weren't working. He's like, oh, this is amazing. You've cracked the code. This is, I think this is really great. I think we're on the right track now with this. And I thought, I just learned a ton about this director and just about their, the way they see things and what they need to see to kind of evaluate the work. And then, then they broke for lunch, and I was behind him in the food line. To his credit, he's a director who eats with the crew in the food line, that doesn't go off to his trailer. And he said, I said to him, hey, I put that first thing on the reel, intentionally, a piece of crap, just so everything else on the reel would look great. In comparison, he goes, oh, that's great. That was a really good strategy, because it really did look like crap.
Can you tell us who the director in film, what the film was?
I'm not. I can say, actually, it was Larry Kasdan on Dreamcatcher, because Larry's a brilliant director, and I had a great time working with him on that film. But he had written, he was one of the writers on Empire Strikes Back and Raiders, and so he had written films with big visual effects in them, but he hadn't directed. All of his films he directed were character films, like The Big Chill and stuff like that. Really brilliant.
Grand Canyon, yeah.
Brilliant films, but no visual effects in them. And so we had to learn to talk to each other on the film about stuff. And again, I learned right away, like, don't show Larry stuff that's really abstract and crude, because, or at least not without a lot more setup and conversation about what the thing is, and allaying of fears, because, he was very rightfully skeptical of stuff looking plasticky and CGE, and because we were right in that dip that came after the amazing
Jurassic Park
bloom of Jurassic Park. Then there was a lot of overreaching, which led to kind of a retraction and a backlash, and not undeservedly, I think, in a lot of cases. And there were directors at the time who were pretty leery of having a film come out with CG effects that weren't going to age well and were going to look phony and stuff. And Larry was that way, and he was also he had a great vocabulary to talk about story and actors. He didn't have a great vocabulary at the time to talk about CG effects, and that's understandable.
Well, I did not expect you to go there.
No.
Jon Favreau was that way when we began work on Iron Man. He had a better vocabulary because he'd done Zathura previously, which is a big effects film. But he was very suspicious of CG, very suspicious, and we were told that going in. But we learned almost immediately, we're like, oh, well, he just doesn't like bad CG.
And look at him now. He's like taking CG by storm.
We're with you, John. It's okay. And we got on great. And that was a great experience. And that's why I think that's part of the reason why I ended up on the Mando series, because John and I really got on well on Iron Man. And then when Mando 1 was in pre-production, and I got a call. I was between projects at ILM, and I got a call, and they said, hey, I'm sure you've heard John's doing this series, and they've got this little creature that they're trying to pin down the design on, and he was wondering if he could sit in on some of the calls. I was like, oh, yeah, sure, great. And that was Grogu, and they hadn't, of course, he wasn't called Grogu yet, and they just hadn't, Christian Altsman hadn't done that seminal piece of artwork yet. This group was still chasing it a little bit, and we were just having these calls and talking about it, and they'd show me all the stuff they've done so far, and I don't know how helpful I was, but I was happy to be on the calls. We talked at length. It was good to talk to, it was great to see John again. And anyways, and that led to, the next thing I knew, they were like, yeah, you're just going to stay on that and be the Anim suit. Okay.
All right. So now maybe you can answer this. At what point was Grogu named Grogu? Jon Favreau has said, even before Mandalorian season 1 started, we know his name was Grogu.
That may be true. I don't remember when I first heard him say it, but I know it was before the episode. Before we began. I know it was before we began work on season 2. Because when we began work on season 2, the scripts were coming in, and we knew pretty quick. Oh, Grogu! But I'm sure I heard it before that, like at some point while we were working on 1. I just don't remember when. It was just in some conversation or other. But so if he says he had that name in mind all along, I don't doubt it. He probably did. I don't remember where along the way I first heard it.
But now Lucasfilm was fighting the battle of, no, it's not Baby Yoda, it's Grogu. Well, if you told us this in the beginning, we wouldn't be stuck on Baby Yoda.
And the child doesn't work either
No.
because when you search it online, stuff for kids comes up, not the child merchandise.
And you need to be very careful with your search history on that one.
You too.
And the asset never worked.
No.
And then Grogu, we're not even going to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Been a lot of conversation about that. But yeah, that was really fun to be, at least to play a little role in that process again. And it was Doug Chang's group that really nailed the art. Christian Alsman really finally crystallized it in that one drawing that everyone was like, oh, that's it. And then Legacy Effects just did brilliant work doing the sculpt for the puppet and then building the puppet and then performing the puppet. Mike Manziel and the other puppeteers are all just super brilliant. And yeah, it's great little character. Super cool.
I think I know the answer to this, but were there any digital Grogu shots?
Yeah. When we were on season 1, anytime you're doing a character like that, where you're like, well, we're going to build a puppet, but we're certainly going to need CG for like wide shots of them walking and things like that. We knew that.
He's so cute.
Although now we do those with the puppet. They've since sort of worked out ways, but on season 1 they weren't there yet on that, and so they're just like, well, when he's walking, we'll do that CG. But then there's always the question mark of how well the puppet's going to work out on set, how's it going to look on camera, and all those things. And so you prepare for having to do maybe more stuff in CG than puppet, or vice versa. You don't know. So we were building our CG Grogu in parallel to the puppet. Ideally, the puppet would be done first, and you'd scan it and match it exactly. But we kind of had to be working at the same time just because of the schedule. Ultimately, we did scan it, but anyways. So then we started working on shots in post-production before shooting was finished for the whole season, because we just needed to get in there and start figuring things out. And so the very first shot you see of him when he pulls the blanket down was a puppet shot, but we replaced, I think everything. The hand and the head, everything. The blanket's real, but we replaced him with CG. And that, again, was only because it was early days and it was really close. And I think we were still exploring the character. We were like, and we don't know how much do we want him to be, because the puppet is awesome. But if you really look at it, like the expressions it can do are not that wide ranging, because it's a small head and there's only so many controls inside. But honestly, because of the design, it's a benefit. The simplicity is a benefit, but that's something we all had to learn. So anyways, but with the CG character, obviously you have all kinds of little micro movements and all that stuff. So that was a process of discovery on that shot. And what we learned on that shot and a few others on season 1, that was a CG shot. All the stuff where he's walking or eating frogs and things like that was CG. When he uses the Force for the first time on the Mudhorn, because we really wanted this sort of concentrated look, that was CG. And also when he's using the Force on, is it Cara Dune? Who's in the ship? They're going somewhere, and he starts to he's got that weird little concentrated look on his face. That was in the Razor Crest. He's doing it to somebody. Anyways, he's got this funny little concentrated look. Anyways, that was CG. There was a fair amount of CG in season 1. It's still mostly the puppet, but there's still a fair amount of CG. Much less on season 2 and much less on season 3 and Book of Boba Fett, because the puppeteers got better and better and better. And so we saw less and less need for CG. We all understood much better what the charm of the character was. And again, part of it is simplicity. It's not a lot of complicated emotional triggering and little micro movements in the face. It's like a little blink and a head turn and the ears go up and everybody just melts. And it's like, if you mess with that formula, it's easy to break. And so we stepped back. We were like, this is working gangbusters. The actors love it. The camera loves it. Audience loves it. The less CG we do, the better. So yeah, that's how it's evolved over time. The other thing that's really key, though, and this is all down to John, is that on a lot of projects, and this applied mainly to season 1 because we'd figured this out by season 2, but on a lot of projects, you've got a puppet character You're unsure quite how much it's going to play in the final product. You think it's working, but you're not sure. Some folks might get nervous and start going, all right, let's shoot a clean plate without the puppet, just in case. And then further, when you get into a scene that was blocked out in previs, where the kid has to like maybe crawl down out of a chair and cross the room and do some complication, and then you get on set and the puppeteers are like, man, it's really hard to get him out of this chair without blocking him with our arms and doing all this, and everyone's kind of talking it over, and then the episode director gets nervous about delay and says, all right, we'll just pull it out of there. We'll just shoot a plate and you guys can do it digitally later. Move on. That happens a lot on other projects. On Mandalorian, John said, no. If we get into a tight spot and the puppeteers are saying this is not a good way to handle the puppet or do this, let's reblock it on the spot. Let's figure out something that is good for the puppet and do it with a puppet. And because he committed to that and he talked all the directors into committing to that, that also played a role in more puppet, less CG, less CG, less CG. And it was totally the way to go. Like, it was like, trust the puppet. We'll make our day. Let's just take a deep breath and figure this out now and not put it on visual effects, not say we'll fix it in post. And it was, brilliant. It's really the way to do it.
So what I'm hearing is that Grogu is a diva.
Yeah, extremely difficult. My joke on set, people would visit set, and of course they'd always be like, "Oh, can I see the baby? Can I see Grogu?" And they get there, "Oh my God, it's so cute!" Particularly because on season 2 they came up. On season 1, the main hero puppet had a lot of cables and things connected to him, and then there was a standalone, if people were like running with him and stuff, that was inert. On season 2, they made a standalone that had basic expressions and head turns and ear movements, which was great. Because now we had because we'd had to replace him in some shots in season 1 where he was being held because he just looked like what he was, just like a static doll. Whereas on season 2, he'd be looking around and alive, and it was like, great, all those shots are practical now. We don't have to do those. And so that was a big help. Anyway, so people come to set, and particularly on season 2, once they had that version, and they could just hand it to somebody, and they're like, oh my God, he's so good. And they're just like melting,
Like Lizzo, everyone's Lizzo when they come to set.
Exactly. And they would inevitably say, I want to take him home. And I'd be like, you can take him home, but you have to take these 3 grown men with you and feed and care for them.
And they eat a lot. I've seen them at craft service. They eat a lot.
Without them, you won't have Grogu. So.
So my question is, I used to be a puppeteer at a studio right at the pioneering effects days of visual effects, and the visual effects of the puppet and the creature effects of puppeteering, they never matched because no one was talking to each other. So you were saying that you were on set with the puppet of Grogu, and you were also doing the visual effects for Grogu. How much communication was there just to make sure that every movement had to match? Because I love the fact that Grogu still looks a little bit like a puppet. He does his little jerky movements, but I love that so much because it calls back to the time of Star Wars and CGI, when things had that little herky-jerky.
Yeah, we have lots of conversations about that. Because there's the good version of that and there's the not so good version of that. And we're always trying to parse which kind we're doing. And even with Grogu, which is usually, it's like, no, that's great. That's what we want. But there are times when the series has been shot, we're in post-production, we're turning over sequence to the visual effects, and we're all looking at it together. And, maybe he's doing something that's like extra puppety looking, like a little bobbly and stuff. And then we'll have that conversation. We'll go, is that the charming? That's the Muppet charming puppet thing we like, right? Not the rubber, not alive version, right? And everyone is, no, that's super charming. Okay, great. And then we just leave it in, and John, and we all just got, John, everyone weighs in on it, and we make that decision. And like I said, it's less and less often now that we end up replacing anything. And occasionally we might just replace the head, but usually it's not because the puppet was doing something wrong. It might be because the cut changed and the idea of the performance changed in post. And like, okay, now we need him to look at Mando. Now he's looking at the wrong character. We need something like that. But on set, yeah, there's tons of conversation about what we're shooting and what we're going to end up with and what the plan is for later. again, I mean, with the puppet, the hope is that what they're shooting is going to play. And so there isn't a lot of coordinating that needs to happen with visual effects other than things like, hey, there's no way for us to puppeteer this scene without Joe's elbow getting a little bit into shot in front of part of the puppet. Is that going to be a problem? And then when we all discuss it and go, yeah, it'll be fine. We'll paint it out. Or we'll be like, wow, that's really including a bunch of him when he's moving with his little cloth outfit, and that's going to be hard to reconstruct. Let's figure out a different way to do this. Those are the kind of conversations we have on set. Then as I said, then later we'll, amongst ourselves in post, have a conversation about if there is anything we need to tweak or adjust, and then if there is, then what we're going to do.
Having worked on Attack of the Clones, were you on the Yoda crew? And I know that they wanted Yoda's ears to have that little bit of rubbery bounce that he had in The Empire Strikes Back. Were you on that crew?
Well, so between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, George, right at the end of Phantom Menace, I think George broached the idea to Rob Coleman about doing Yoda CG. And so Rob put together a little team. It was me and Linda Bell, Steve Rawns, I think there were three of us. And we each took a couple shots from Empire Strikes Back. And we had a CG Yoda asset at that time that we'd made for Phantom Menace, but it wasn't like a really high-res asset. And because I'd animated one shot and Linda had animated another shot in Phantom Menace. There's a shot at the very end when Obi-Wan is kneeling in this room, and it's kind of a high angle, and Yoda's walking along and talking to him about what's next, and
for Anakin, yeah,
Qui-Gon gone and all that. So that was the first CG Yoda shot, and then Linda had a little shot of him in this pan across the Qui-Gon's funeral, and they needed to add him to the shot, and she did that shot. But neither shot was very close up or anything. But we had this asset, and we got a rudimentary face rig into it, and we each took a couple of shots from Empire Strikes Back and just copied them the best we could with this asset, such as it was at the time, as a test. And we had discussions about, should we, like our face rig, it's like a normal human face rig on Yoda. He's got a mouth and a nose and eyes, and we had it, we were going to rig it that way. And then we thought, you know what, should we look into how Frank Oz's hand was actually positioned inside the puppet, and what parts of the face his fingers controlled to do scrunches and open them, like which finger did the jaw and how to, and we talked about it. And in the end, we decided not to do that and just to do a regular human face rig, and that we would just try our best to animate it in a way that looked like what the puppet did. Then we talked about the ears. We were like, do we want the rubbery jiggle on the tips of the ears? And we thought, well, it doesn't look like him without it. Yes, we want to do it. So we put that in. So we each did those little tests, and my couple of tests were from that scene where he raises the X-Wing out of the swamp, and I forget exactly which lines. I still have the little movie file somewhere. I've got it tucked away. And then Rob took those up to the ranch and showed them to George. And in fact, you can see, I think it's in that Puppets to Pixels documentary. It's on YouTube. It was an extra on one of the different clone, maybe Attack of the Clones DVD. I think it was Attack of the Clones DVD. You can see a little bit of that meeting where Rob showed that tape to George and his reaction to it. It's not the whole meeting, but there's a little clip of it in there up at the ranch. And then later, they were recording Frank Oz, and Rob had some of the early Yoda animation and showed it to Frank. And Frank was like, wow, he goes, yeah, that's really amazing. It looks great. He goes, but we tried so damn hard to get rid of that rubbery bounce on the ears, and you guys kept it in there. Why would you and I was like, well, it's just not Yoda without it,
The charm.
It's like, what? If they kept the head-banging stormtrooper in, they're going to leave the rubbery Yoda ears in.
It's like Grogu walking as a puppet.
It's all part of the realism.
Yeah, but then ironically, I didn't end up animating any or even supervising any Yoda stuff on Attack of the Clones. I was busy with, because I came in kind of midstream, because again, I was doing AI, and then that wrapped, and then I came on, and Rob brought me on, and so I was supervising the droid factory sequence, which is a whole big complicated thing that got added quite late in the schedule, and then or relatively late, and then the battle outside the arena at the end. So not the creatures, which I was jealous. I really wanted to work on the creature stuff because it was very Ray Harryhausen, but outside the arena, the droid army, the clone army, the tanks, the hailfire droids, all that stuff. So I supervised Anim on that and some other odds and ends, but didn't get to do any other stuff. I really wanted to work on the fight, the Dooku fight. And the animators, we were very passionate about it. And I think Rob agreed with us. Like going into it, we were like, this should be like Sauron and Saruman, two great wizards, like using the Force with like rocks floating off the ground and trembling, cracking ceiling, and the whole thing. And there's some of that in there. I think George probably always wanted that. Where George was like, no, he's got these powerful little frog legs, and I want people to see why he's an amazing Jedi fighter, like with his lightsaber. And we were just not seeing, I'll be honest, we were like, okay. But I say we, again, I didn't work on it. Tim Harrington, a bunch of very talented animators worked on that sequence. But we were all keenly interested in the proceedings, but they got into it, and George was right. In fact, when I saw Attack of the Clones with just a proper audience, not a crew screening or anything, I think that moment got the biggest crowd reaction of anything in the whole film. The minute he leaped into action and was just spinning around with his little saber, well, when he pulls the cloak out and pulls the saber. Yeah. I know Tim Harrington animated that shot. The crowd just went bananas. And then when he leaped into the air, people were just like, holy crap, and we were like, he was right. He was so right. It was what everyone needed.
I'm getting teared up thinking of that moment in the theater. I saw it at the Man's Chinese Theater,
great.
And that was fantastic.
We were just talking to John Coppinger, who sculpted Jabba the Hutt a few weeks ago, and I told him that whenever I see Jabba the Hutt, when I'm watching Return of the Jedi, I can still hear the audience going, oh. Whenever I watch Attack of the Clones and I see Yoda reaching for his lightsaber, I can still hear in my head, over 20 years later, the audience just going ballistic. And I've never heard an audience going as ballistic as they did when they saw Yoda leaping and bouncing all over the place like flubber. Yeah. No one could handle that.
Yeah, no, it was great. Yeah, we were like, oh, George was right.
Yep. Wow.
Hi, I'm Emily Swallow. I play the armorer on The Mandalorian, and I am skywalking through Neverland. This is the way.
And there is part 1 of our discussion with HAL HICKEL. So you see now why we had to split it into 2 different parts. So many great stories. So next week, we're going to continue with behind-the-scenes stories from The Mandalorian, starting with the big Gargantugator scene.
Shoutouts, Skywalker shoutouts. Which Skywalkers get props from here in Neverland? Who has tweeted out? Shout out. Who has photobombed? Shout out. Who has shared a post? Shout out.
All right, now comes one of my favorite segments, the shout out, where we get to thank all of you Skywalkers who have been supporting us over the years, almost a decade now.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, Skywalking Force, we are so grateful for you, and this is your monthly shout out. Thank you so much to Anthony Kakias,
Blessed Cheesemaker,
Bryn McKinnon,
Carl Fox,
Chickafent,
Christopher Marino,
Courtney Turkel,
Darren Irvine,
Dave Kerwin,
Don Glover,
Garrett Sessions,
Glenn Stein,
Jennifer Cole,
Jeremy and Heather Hunt,
John Liang,
John Zoncanaro,
Julie Caruana,
Kelly Turkel,
Jeremy Stevenson,
Laura Bryce,
Meredith,
Michael Corbett,
Michael Nip,
Mike Ward,
Nancy Steinman,
Patrick Pine,
Patty Hammond,
Patty Nazarian,
Peter and Norma Heitman,
Reynold Gobey,
Scott Carmichael,
Scott Hume,
Terry Lee,
Wesley Meecombs, and Wynn Patterson. Thank you to one and to all. We really appreciate all your support over the last going on 10 years.
Yeah, yay. Yeah. Christopher Marino, I believe, is our first Patreon subscriber. So thank you, Christopher.
Yeah, and once again, all these funds go to supporting the shows up on the Libsyn
feed.
The feed.
Our website costs, things like that, improving
every once in a
content.
while, we need new equipment. We got new microphones. So all of that is because of you.
Yeah.
And if you can't support us with these skywalking for us, we understand that. So maybe you can go on Instagram or YouTube or on
And subscribe.
Facebook and just subscribe and like and comment. All that
Share in your stories.
really helps when we're trying to get to that 10,000 mark on YouTube. That
Yes.
is the next tier, and we're about 1,400 and change away from that.
Mhm.
So please, if you can help us out any way you can with that, please. I've been known to grab someone's phone and just hit the subscribe button.
Yep, just do it. It's
Yeah.
real easy.
Mhm.
Really. They won't know.
Our neighbors hate us. And people at Disney, like, hey, I can give you our Instagram. People will give you their phones to put on their Instagram. I'll go to YouTube and hit subscribe.
Awesome.
Well, that wraps up episode 417 of Skywalking Through Neverland. We want to thank HAL HICKEL for coming on the show and giving us so many great stories, which we'll be sharing next week. And once again, we couldn't do this without all of you Skywalkers, week in and week out.
Are you interested in all of our books, either Today in Star Wars History, Parts 1 and 2, or the workbook, Skywalking Through My Fandom? Well, all of those autographed copies are available now. It's May the 4th. By the time this comes out, they're available now from skywalkingthrough-neverland.com/book. You can also find them on Amazon, especially if you're an international person. But I did figure out how to do international shipping from my shipping service. So you can also get an international book from us.
Now, once again, we want to thank our sponsor, Small World Vacations, for their support. Thinking of a trip to a Disney park or the Galactic Star Cruiser? We can fill out a Get a Quote form at smallworldvacations.com today. Their vacation planning service is free of charge, so check it out and tell them Skywalking Through Neverland sent you.
Now, if you would like to support Skywalking Through Neverland, consider supporting us and becoming a member of the Skywalking Force, which is our Patreon. You guys get monthly shout outs on the show, you get access to bonus content, and you get a coupon code or even possibly a free Skywalking Through My Fandom book, depending on what level you support. And the coupon code is 50% off. So that's a pretty good one. This bonus content begins at only $5 a month. So head to skywalkingforce.com, have a look at the options. Any support, of course, is greatly appreciated, even if you're just sharing. So thank you so much.
Now, we are part of the Skywalking Network,
Skynet,
where you can find other great shows like Talking Apes,
the Max Effects podcast,
the Neverland Clubhouse,
Totally Tell Me Everything,
Star Warsologies,
and the YouTube shows Collectopolis and
Today in Star Wars History. Now there's two series of Today in Star Wars History.
Well, there's one playlist, but it does include now the YouTube shorts, as well as our original videos that we were doing. Now you can follow us on social media. Please subscribe on YouTube. Just search YouTube for Skywalking Through Neverland. You'll also get notifications on when we go live if you click that notification button. And then we can read your comments on the show and everywhere. We love your comments, Skywalkers. And you can follow us at Skywalking Pod for Twitter and Instagram. And you can join our Facebook group, Skywalking Through Neverland.
Now, don't forget to stick around for bloopers and other fun bits that didn't make it into the show. And
always remember
to celebrate Star Wars Month like you've never done before.
And Neverland on Alderaan.